We are living in a strange time when it comes to cinema. We are experiencing a plethora of popcorn flicks, or what I like to call junk food movies. Yeah, that sounds about right. And of course, a glutton of blockbusters. Most of the time, these movies are only popular for the moment. They make hundreds of millions of dollars, people talk about them, and then they leave the theater to do the same thing over and over again. Most of the time, these movies are not designed to make people think or to challenge its audience. Instead, they are designed just to entertain. Nothing more. Nowadays, it seems like studios don't really care about their audience. Their mentality goes like this: make something big, don't worry about the writing, people will go see it anyway. If a sequel flops, just do it again. If the public detests our remake, their voices won't matter. We will make hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars anyway. Even comedies that are meant for a more adult audience are not as smart or funny as they once were. Now, it is true that every once in a while a good comedy will come along and make you laugh and have a good time. But the comedies we have nowadays just aren't as smart, funny, clever, or interesting as the great comedies of the past. It seems as if the world of cinema has lost its creativity and soul. Back in the day, blockbusters, epics, or popcorn movies were few and far between. Filmmakers and studios took their time making these films because they wanted to get people in the theaters while simultaneously engaging them with good stories, effects, and characters. Films like The Godfather, The Godfather Part 2, Jaws, the entire Back to the Future trilogy, Alien, Aliens, The Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, Gone with the Wind, The Greatest Story Ever Told, Ghostbusters, and the entire Indiana Jones and Star Wars original trilogies, to name a few examples. Now, they are literally everywhere. You can't go 2 minutes without seeing a commercial for a big budget epic that will most likely not be any good. This has been going on for quite some time now, but it wasn't this obvious. As far back as even the 90s, there seemed to be a period where the summer blockbuster was always an exciting time. But in the mid-90s, they seemed to be running out of steam, and it wouldn't be until films like Mask of Zorro, Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, and Titanic that brought the blockbuster and popcorn movie back. Nowadays, it seems like it doesn't matter what movie comes out, people will go see it and not even think about it. Because of his new mindset, independent filmmakers for the last 20-some years have had a hard time getting noticed. There are some independent studios out there who work outside of Hollywood, like A24 and Focus Features. Despite being produced by a major studio, Focus Features have independent film qualities. They have released many decent to great films like Brokeback Mountain, Eternal Sunshine of His Father's Mind, Black Klansman, Phantom Thread, Darkest Hour, The Constant Gardener, The Pianist, Dallas Buyers Club, The Theory of Everything, and Lost in Translation, to name a few. The movies I just mentioned have great stories, thought-provoking themes, and memorable characters. They also make great documentaries as well. Films like Won't You Be My Neighbor and Roadrunner have become critical and audience favorites. Most of the films by Focus Features may not be the best movies out there, and of course, there are some bad movies in the mix too, but they do know how to do a decent job at telling good stories. One of these is The Card Counter, a film about the underworld of a man's psyche. As the film began, I started to take note of the old Hollywood-style credits. From that moment on, I was hooked. Sometimes I wonder, why don't more people bring these credits back? These credits were simple, you can see every word, and they put you in the right mood. These credits are about 1,000 times better than the flashy credit style we have today. Oh, how I miss them. The story is a simple one. I instantly took note of Oscar Isaac as the lead. I kept waiting for him to say something stupid like, Emperor Palpatine has somehow returned. God, that was awful! We're not gonna delve into that piece of cinematic embarrassment today. Another time, though. He plays William Tell, an ex-soldier thrown in prison for 8 years. Once he's released, he spends his time counting cards. It was nice that the writer was able to break down his thought process and you actually got a chance to see how he thinks and acts. To make a long story short, according to him, the house, being the casinos, don't care if you count cards and win small. Essentially, if you bet small, you'll win small. They have a problem when you count cards and win big. I am aware that in the world of gambling, counting cards is illegal. This reminds me of the movie 21, where Kevin Spacey teaches MIT students to count cards. The only difference is that it doesn't screw him over later on like you'd expect. He later meets Kirk. Yes, that's Kirk with a C. A young man who is out for revenge against a well-known military commander, John Gordo, played by Willem Dafoe. John Gordo was the one who assigned William to be a military interrogator, torturing and abusing prisoners in order to demoralize them and turn them into the scum of the earth. A series of photos got leaked into the media, and out of the other members of his interrogation facility, he was the only one who was tried and sentenced to prison. This is where he learned to count cards, as a means of passing the time.
But I said that already, didn't I?
William is not after revenge. In fact, all he wants is to play in the casinos, live an anonymous life, and write in his diary. If anything, he is more or less waiting for something exciting to enter his life. But Kirk knows who William is and how he is going to exact his revenge. Kirk needs William's help. William does not want him to go through with his plan. Instead, he wants him to get out of his college debts, reconcile with his mom, who left him when he was young, and finish his college education. All against a backdrop of an upcoming poker tournament that William is participating in. There are a lot of similarities between this movie and Taxi Driver. In fact, the writer of that movie, Paul Schrader, wrote Taxi Driver under director Martin Scorsese's wing. Paul also directed a number of other movies, including Hardcore, Free Reformed, Affliction, and Dominion prequel to The Exorcist. His style of writing usually involves loners who wear masks. They have a past but they don't want to talk about, a weight on their shoulders that can never be removed, yet they hide it under an anonymous persona. These people, who mostly live in the dark, stay away from the spotlight, and eventually certain circumstances force them to get into situations where their past actions catches up with them. This is something that William is trying to avoid. While Kirk is out for revenge, William wants to help him find another way out of his problems. There is also Linda, played by Tiffany Haddish, who is the love interest of his tale. Although she ran a horse racing gambling stable, the two of them become friends in their own way. Both are polar opposites from one another. Linda is always upbeat, while William is the quiet loner. I took note of a common theme of what gambling can do to a person or a group of people. My mind flashed back to the great casino-type films like The Cincinnati Kid, where Steve McQueen played poker in New Orleans, Casinos, about mobsters who run a casino, which was surprisingly directed by Martin Scorsese, 21, as I mentioned earlier, and other movies set in Las Vegas, like Leaving Las Vegas, a movie about one man's downhill spiral through alcoholism, the modern comedy film The Hangover, the classic caper movie The Sting, The Cooler, which dealt with the theme of what would happen if you made Las Vegas your prison and how do you get out of it, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, about two men's wild drug-fueled trip down the Vegas Strip, and the James Bond film Casino Royale. The movie acknowledges our main character's situation, and you try to wonder how he will get out of it. He tells Kirk at a diner not to go through with the plan because he wants no involvement with it. He recalls how he tortured someone with a loud sound, and the sound got louder and louder. He says that nothing can repay what they did. At the moment, Kirk announced his revenge plan and how he needed William's help to extract his revenge on John Gordo. I shriveled inside. My mind instantly thought of the nearly 100 revenge movies like Collateral Damage, Hard to Kill, Cold Pursuit, Bleeding Steel, and Rapid Man to name a few. But then, as the movie went on, my thought process focused back to what the movie was trying to say. It's about a man who is trying to find redemption within himself and how he doesn't want to end up back to where he was 8 years prior. But for some reason, his past catches up with him. You get a sense of who William is and why he does what he does. I admire the simplicity and how it blurs the line between past and present. You ask yourself questions like, why does Kirk want revenge in the first place when he never knew who William was prior to their initial meeting? What was his relationship like with his mother prior to the start of the film? Can William be redeemed at all for what he did in the past? All these questions and more, you think about them after the movie ends. Let's talk about the technical aspects. The cinematography captures everything you need to see. It's smooth and easy on the eyes. One of my favorite shots is where William enters the tournament and we see him walking to the left of the frame. Then the camera pans over the other poker players for about 2 minutes, and then we meet up with William, who is sitting at one of the other tables in the back of a room. It reminded me a lot of a shot in Gone with the Wind, where Scarlett O'Hara looks over the wounded soldiers during the Civil War that are laying out on the train tracks, although the shot in the card counter is not as epic as that. There's an interesting argument in the film that we are like pinball machines. We tilt, as in we can protect ourselves from any more damage caused by others. He says that if Kirk can tilt, so can he. It tries to add depth and symbolism to this movie, but it's very vague and hard to understand. So far this movie seems like it's a masterpiece. But then, the anger set in. My blood started to boil when I noticed issues like the pacing. It seemed as if the editor forgot to stop the scene in a few places because there are shots that go on unintentionally forever. There are times where nothing happens, as if the camera just kept rolling when really nothing was happening. There's one example when, at the beginning of the third act, William finds out what happened to Kirk. He leaves his white-covered hotel room and drives away, leaving the poker tournament behind. We do not need to see the car pulling out of the driveway. We already get the point. Another example is where William offers Kirk $100,000 if he contacts his mom and make amends for what happened in the past. Will asks him if he had a minute, to which Kirk says yes. They leave the room and you see nothing on the screen except 2 chairs, a table, and a glass Kirk was drinking earlier. I often wondered if somebody was gonna yell cut anytime soon. Overall, this movie is one of those movies that got me excited. One that makes you think long after it's over. Honestly, I miss movies like that. In an age of endless blockbusters, movies that rot your brain, and movies that do nothing more than just to entertain you, every once in a while a movie will come around that makes one leave a theater wanting to see it again, and then talk about it long after it was over. With a haunting atmosphere, smooth cinematography, and well-written characters, this is one to check out. It is also an effective character study about a man trying to escape the ghosts of his past. A man who wants nothing more than to live a simple life and distance himself from the nightmares of who he was before. No, this movie is not a masterpiece. In fact, when you compare this movie to many other great character study films, this movie is nowhere near as good as those. However, it is one of the best movies of this year, 2021. At least it stands out from a large amount of superhero, lowbrow comedies and big-budget adventure flicks we have been getting in the last few months alone. Films like Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, Jungle Cruise, and The Suicide Squad. If someone asked me to review any one of these and other movies like it, I tell them I'd rather talk about this movie or Paw Patrol the movie.
Oh yeah, I said that.
Sure, I'll see these mind-rotting popcorn flicks and enjoy them, and I don't have a problem talking about them, but let's take a moment to spread the word on films that don't get as much exposure as a Disney, Marvel, or some low-grade comedic flick, or some big-budget adventure movie. Sometimes you just need to wake up and realize there's more movies out there. The Card Counter may not be an amazing movie, at least when you compare it to the great character study classics of the past, but at least this movie tries to be its own thing. I award The Card Counter an 8 out of 10. A good movie with good characters, haunting score, great cinematography, and decent ideas. At least it's not a predictable revenge movie. Sort of.